Yeah.
You know, as we think about now the new virtualized world and knowing that corporate culture, I think, you know, you have often shared with me that, you know, culture eats strategy for breakfast or lunch or some meal of some sort, that the idea of culture is so foundational before you get into strategy and tactics and actions. And, you know, as you think about what we are learning and will continue to learn in the coming weeks in this new remote working world and in this
Yeah.
space, an era of virtualization, as I've heard it called, how do you anticipate organizational culture is going to be both positively and potentially negatively impacted if we're not planful and mindful of who we are and what we want to be, you know, in this next era?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I was on a call yesterday, a webinar put on by, I'm here in Pittsburgh, and we have a wonderful organization here called the Pittsburgh Technology Council, which serves members who are, you know, entrepreneurs and tech innovators. And they've been doing a daily briefing. And yesterday there was the leader of a large advanced manufacturing company on, and he made an interesting comment. He's probably, I don't know, late 40s or early 50s, took over a family business about 15 years ago. And he said, I don't think I've spent this much time at my desk in 25 years, right, of being in business. They're a global company, and his international travel was extensive. And he said, you know, it's interesting. On the one hand, I miss the being able to go out and have the high touch with my people in our various plants and factories around the world. On the other hand, I see more. I'm stiller, I'm calmer, and I have more ability to scan the landscape and see what's going on. Now, they're considered an essential business. They make safety devices. So they've restructured how their factories work, but they're in business, right? So he's not sitting at home. He's functioning in his office environment. His people are there and they're practicing all the safety practices. He said, but the opportunity to really sit with people in more space has been a real advantage. I also think that, you know, we're seeing that it can produce certain kinds of efficiencies, right, and productivity. When you get on a Zoom call like this one, you're not going to spend 15 minutes getting coffee and chatting about your weekend, right? You get on and there's an agenda and you get down to business, and the time can be, you know, used more efficiently, as we would say. And I think that's true. I think the shadow of it is that we're going to perhaps overextend this and replace some things that should go back to real human interaction, rather than the virtual environment. Sitting across a table in a coffee shop has a different level of encounter than even this environment. As beautiful as your face is on the screen, I'd rather sit in the room with you, right?
Me too.
And so that is a reality. And I think we are, one of my fears for this, one of my hopes is that as a sort of type A country, we'll call this, you know, hyper individualism and hyper productivity oriented as we are in the United States. I hope that there's also people are creating space to have a little downtime in the midst of this. And some businesses are continuing to go at full bore in this environment. Other people are grounded, right? They're out of work and they do have more time and space. And what are the implications of that? My fear for business leaders is that they'll view this as an opportunity to accelerate productivity because they think they can get more in. And what I've learned about myself, and I don't know if this is true for you, as I spend most of my days like this, right, in various groups on the phone or doing Zoom, a lot of Zoom calls, and I'm actually finding that I have a little Zoom fatigue, right? And what I've learned is that I need space between the calls. And I need to get up and walk around and create some mental space so that I can make the shift. You know, part of that chit chat time of coming in and out of meetings, of transitioning from one physical space to another, gives our brains an opportunity to reset a little bit before we go back into the next environment. When we schedule calls like this back to back, we have no opportunity to reset, and we're going to actually become counterproductive at some point in the day. And so I think we need to really, really pay attention to the long-term implications of that, some of which we don't really know yet.
Yeah.
And I do think even in the short term, you know, we spent time in the summer up in Maine, on the coast. My husband's family's been going there for years. And on Sunday night, we scheduled one of the community habits up there is something called a porch party, where you invite people to come sit on your porch. Everyone has a screened-in porch, and drink and have a snack. And those are delightful ways to connect with people. So we did a virtual porch party on Sunday night, and it was hilarious. And that was a positive use, right, of connection with people that we actually wouldn't typically see at this time of year. We're all there in the summer, but not. And it was fun to connect and to think about the summer and hope and pray that we can all be together up there. That was a positive, right? So it is creating opportunities to connect. My 93-year-old mother-in-law, all four of her sons, my husband included, got on the phone, on a Zoom call with her sons last week. And the delight on her face to see them all on her iPad, which she's remarkably adept at using at 93, was just wonderful, right? So there's some pluses and minuses. And I think we're going to have to go through an evaluation period once we do have the ability to go back into the real interaction environment to assess how we leverage this learning and what we let go of that wasn't particularly useful.
So what I'm taking away from what you're saying is just because we are now learning that virtualization can make some things easier and more efficient, shouldn't be confused with effective.
Yeah.
And that we need to be mindful, right? So that the things that we are gleaning and learning can be huge positives and can really lift potential. But let's not substitute efficiency and effectiveness, or efficiency for effectiveness.
That's right.
The second thing that I'm hearing you say is that recognition that work from home isn't work and home are the same thing.
That's right.
So applying the same kind of sort of relationship and personal time and downtime and replenishment time, much like you would see an elite athlete, you know, when you taper in before a big swimming race, or you really, take some downtime before you engage in a high velocity situation, that it's going to require real acts of leadership to make sure that we don't allow work from home to be work and home all in the same way. Because I can see some of the consequences. And frankly, for me as a person who, if you're not accustomed to working from home, you recognize like every minute of your day could be productive in the pursuit of something to advance your business or your team or your organization. And so that real boundary keeping so that you can make time for porch parties. That's also another takeaway, hopeful realism and the virtual porch party nuggets that I think will sustain us well beyond this time.